Jack Morales gripped his daughter's hand as two airline agents blocked the jet bridge in front of 200 watching passengers. Emma's voice cracked as she asked why they were being pulled off the flight her mother had promised her before she died. Somewhere above them, a flight attendant clutched a boarding pass that didn't match the story she had already decided was true. 12 hours earlier, none of this seemed possible. Jack had spent 3 years working double shifts on construction sites, saving every mile from every job-related flight he could find. His wife had died 2 winters ago, but her last wish stayed folded in his wallet like a promise he refused to break. She had always wanted their daughter to see the ocean from a window seat in first class, just once. That morning, Jack finally redeemed enough miles to buy 2 first-class seats to Honolulu for Emma's 9th birthday. He came straight from an emergency job site repair, still in his work clothes, because there had been no time to change. At the gate, Diane checked their passes and smiled, telling Emma she would love the window view over the Pacific. As they walked down the jet bridge, Victoria glanced at Jack's dusty boots and made a decision before he ever said a word. She scanned their tickets twice, as if the seat numbers themselves might change if she looked hard enough. Meanwhile, a wealthy passenger named Thorne boarded behind them, already annoyed that his assistant had booked his seat incorrectly. When Thorne saw Jack settling into seat 2A, he assumed the airline had made a mistake, and Victoria was inclined to agree. Thorne demanded that the flight attendant fix the error immediately, insisting a man dressed like Jack could not possibly own a first-class ticket. Victoria pulled up the passenger manifest on her tablet, and her stomach tightened when she saw an unfamiliar duplicate booking under Thorne's name. Rather than admit the airline system had glitched, she decided it would be easier to question the man who looked like he didn't belong. She crouched beside Jack's seat and asked, in a voice loud enough for nearby rows to hear, whether he could prove the tickets were really his. Jack calmly handed over his phone with the confirmation email, but Victoria barely glanced at it before saying the miles must have been stolen. Emma tugged her father's sleeve and whispered that she was scared, and Jack forced a smile he did not feel. Other passengers began filming quietly on their phones, sensing that something unfair was unfolding in row 2. Victoria radioed the gate for backup, insisting she had a possible fraud situation that needed to be resolved before departure. Diane hurried back onto the plane, confused, because she had personally verified Jack's tickets less than 10 minutes earlier. By the time she reached the cabin, Victoria had already told the captain there was an unauthorized passenger refusing to leave his seat. Captain Reyes stepped out of the cockpit and studied the man in the dusty work jacket, something tugging at his memory. He asked Jack his last name, and when Jack answered, the captain's expression shifted from suspicion to disbelief. 6 months earlier, a scaffolding collapse at the airline's cargo hangar had trapped 3 maintenance workers, and Jack had climbed in through twisted steel to pull them out. Reyes had been the one who filed the safety report, praising the stranger who refused to leave until every worker was safely out. He had never learned that stranger's name until this exact moment, standing in the aisle of his own aircraft. But before Reyes could speak up, ground control radioed that the gate was already 15 minutes past its departure window. Under pressure to keep the flight on schedule, the airline's duty manager ordered the disruptive passenger removed immediately, no exceptions. Victoria seized the order as vindication and told Jack he and his daughter needed to gather their bags and leave the aircraft now. Emma began to cry as her father gathered their bags, and the whole cabin fell into an uncomfortable, judgmental silence. Jack said nothing, choosing his daughter's dignity over an argument he suspected he might lose anyway. Back on the jet bridge, 2 agents escorted them off the aircraft as dozens of passengers watched through the cabin windows. Emma looked back at the plane and asked her father if her mother would be disappointed that they never made it to the ocean. Jack knelt down at the gate and told her that some people judge what they see before they ever ask what is true. A dozen phones had already captured the removal, and by the time they reached the terminal food court, the video was spreading online. Diane found them sitting alone near an empty gate, and she quietly admitted she had never trusted Victoria's version of events. Inside the aircraft, Captain Reyes refused to let the door close, telling the crew there would be no departure until the situation was corrected. He pulled up the maintenance report on his tablet and showed it to the duty manager, proving exactly who Jack Morales was. Victoria's face went pale as she realized the man she had humiliated in front of 200 passengers was the hangar collapse hero from the safety bulletin. Reyes personally walked back through the terminal to find Jack and Emma, apologizing before he had even reached them. Emma looked up and, through tearful eyes, asked simply if they were finally allowed to see the ocean. Reyes knelt beside her and promised that not only were they flying today, they would be sitting right behind him in the cabin he commanded. Jack was rewarded with a formal apology broadcast over the cabin intercom, and passengers who had filmed the removal now filmed his return. Victoria was quietly relieved of her duties for the flight, and airline officials later confirmed she would face a formal review of the incident. As the plane climbed above the clouds, Emma pressed her face to the window, finally seeing the endless blue horizon her mother had promised her. Jack watched his daughter smile for the first time that day, and somewhere in that ordinary moment, he finally felt like he had kept his promise.